For us, it's a daily thing.
It's every day, right?
This is Mammoth Daily
We're going to take you inside the locker room
with Mike Fulta.
We want this show to be about the fans, and we want this show to be driven by our Utah Mammoth community.
And Adrian Denny.
Fans can submit what they want to hear us talk about, what they want to hear Utah weigh in on. It's all going to be here.
Here's Mike and AD with you.
Utahns, countrymen, lend me your ears.
Right here on Mammoth Daily.
New Jersey Devils in town to take on the Utah Mammoth tonight at the Delta Center. I'm Mike Fulta. He's Adrian Denny. We are your Hockey Night in Utah radio crew. Glad to be with everybody once again this evening back home in downtown Salt Lake City after a 3-game road trip and a successful 3-game road trip. The Mammoth winning 2 of 3 victories over Pittsburgh Penguins, and then the who did we play last night? The Detroit Red Wings. The Devils in town tonight. AD, you can tell the games are starting to blend together a little bit. It's that time of the year, but Mammoth now with wins in 3 of 4, and it really felt like that last win was kind of a swing game where because you won it, you feel pretty good. If you would have lost it, you would have felt really bad.
Yeah, it was a really huge game, and we've seen the team respond after disappointing losses, and we've seen the team respond with some pretty good games. Mike, that game on Wednesday night it's got to be in the A- to an A range, like the Anaheim game that they won 7-0, just dialing down the details and really controlling every facet of the game and winning Mammoth bingo, as we talked about last week on the Friday Free-for-All.
Only thing was that you lost the special teams battle, but in the context of the game, in the context of game management, special teams I thought were pretty good, especially the penalty kill throughout the first couple periods of the game when Mammoth were perfect against the top 10 power play in Detroit, and a guy like Alex DeBrincat, who had been red hot as of late, was talking with some broadcast folks after the game, AD, the ones who were calling the game for other non-Utah entities, and they're saying, yeah, it was kind of a boring game. Looked like two teams who were coming off a back-to-back like Utah and Detroit were. But I think that's just what Utah needed. A little bit of a boring game and a little bit of a game where they can lock things down defensively. I think that's one of the better games I've seen our defense core play in the defensive zone.
And it was the key moments in the game, Mike. They let in a power play goal, but it was 2-0 at that point. When it was really big was when they killed those penalties, when it was a 1-0 game in that second period. Got a couple big saves from Karel Vejmelka. That's your 5th ranked penalty kill in the NHL right there. You continue to go shorthanded. Percentages are Detroit's going to get 1, but you had already gotten 2. And after you killed the 2 penalties in the second period, you came back less than 30 seconds later. Jack McBain got you a goal. So You're able to use the penalty kill to not only keep the lead, but create momentum and build on that lead.
Every line scores for the Utah Mammoth in that win. Vejmelka, really good again here tonight. Now leads the NHL with 15 wins on the year, which is kind of weird to think about because it's been an up and down year for him. But I think that just illustrates how much he's been leaned upon by the coaching staff and by this group. But let's fast forward here to tonight, Adrian, and talk about the matchup with the New Jersey Devils, a team who started the year on top of the world. They lost their first game, and then they promptly ripped off 8 in a row. They started the year 8-1, and then they got bit by the injury bug, and in a big way. They've had a bunch of guys go down due to injury, including their star, Jack Hughes, who's not expected to play against the Utah Mammoth tonight. But this group still treading water in a pretty crowded Metro division. 19 wins on the year already for New Jersey. They're in a wild card spot as we woke up on Thursday morning, and they're keeping pace in a pretty competitive Eastern Conference.
They got a big win in Vegas to start a little 2-game trip, right? You're from Newark, New Jersey, and you have a 2-game trip to Vegas and Salt Lake, Mike. They got the shootout win, the T-Mobile Arena on Wednesday night. They had a 1-0 lead going to the third. Vegas tied it. Seems like they go to overtime every single night, but they were able to get that extra point. And you said without Jack Hughes, kind of like Utah to start the year. Remember, in October, it was Utah and it was New Jersey. New Jersey won 8 straight. Utah won 7 straight. Both teams were on fire. The stories in the NHL, but Utah loses Logan Cooley a little later than New Jersey lost Jack Hughes at the team dinner with the hand injury. He's back and skating, but not going to be close to returning. They've alternated wins and losses in their last 6 games. Before that, they'd lost 5 in a row, but they're really noticing missing the star in Jack Hughes. They're 30th in the NHL in 5-on-5 goals per 60 minutes. Without him, they were 19th with him. Their power plays, 19th without him in power play goals per 60 minutes. They were 10th with him. So really missing that finisher there. And, Mike, you lose a star, you keep competing, you keep getting wins. Utah's seen it like New Jersey has. 19-14-1. They've gotten things back and rolling after that 5-game losing streak.
Yeah, and remember when Utah went to New Jersey last October, and it was the first time the Mammoth had ever seen the Devils, and New Jersey just put the clamps on. And they can do that and kind of win these low-scoring games if they want. They've had pretty good goaltending from Jake Allen, who's a good story, a veteran goaltender who's having a really steady, strong season and giving them a chance to win just about every night. But it's not just Jack Hughes who's been injured as well. They lost about half their defense core. They've been without Brett Pesce, Jonathan Kovacevic, Simon Nemetz, Evgeny Dadonov up front has also been injured. But just guys dropping like flies for New Jersey. They're also they've been without Timo Meier for a bit as well. He's out due to personal reasons. So all the best to Timo Meier and his family. But this team is below 500 since they had that 8-1 start, kind of like how Utah is below 500 since the Mammoths 8-2 start. But this team knows, I think, and everybody following the Devils knows that, look, they're not going to be world beaters right now without Jack Hughes in the lineup. Just like I think Utah fans know, the Mammoth aren't going to pass Minnesota, Dallas, and Colorado without Logan Cooley in the lineup. At least it's going to be really tough to do that. And so as long as the Devils continue to kind of tread water, I think you have to be happy if you're a New Jersey fan just to stay in the mix, stay in that wild card window in the Eastern Conference, because that conference is so tight right now that you'll have a chance once those guys come back due to injury, once Jack Hughes comes back from injury, you'll have a chance to start making your hay in the back half of the year.
We've been talking about fabrics and identities that teams like LA, Florida, Boston have, right? I think New Jersey, they still have that identity that they've been going with all the injuries and having success. And for Utah, Mike, had to take a double take at this, but one of 3 teams in the NHL last year that Utah didn't get any kind of result against. 0-2 against New Jersey, 0-2 against Ottawa, who they've already lost to this year, and 0-3 against the LA Kings. They had 1 goal in 6 periods against New Jersey. And we can talk about scheduled losses, implied losses. That game in Newark on Columbus Day, on Indigenous Peoples Day was had some factors involved in it. Utah lost Sean Durzi, but they got shut out in March at the Delta Center. Utah got 1 goal in a game that was tight, but never more than 9 shots in all but 1 period against the Devils. They got more than 9 shots. Just not much going on, and less than 25 shots in each game against the Devils. So that's another challenge. That's another hurdle, another box that the Mammoth are going to look to check here, is beating New Jersey for the first time, a team that was tough last year.
Yeah, and that's why I think if the Mammoth can continue their recent run of playing with confidence and of being sound defensively, like what we saw, especially against Detroit, I like this matchup a lot for Utah, because it seems more so than last year when Utah doesn't get the first goal or when things aren't going their way, it's a patient group. And I think the Pittsburgh game probably best exemplifies that. It's a confident and patient group where hey, look, we know we're playing the way we need to tonight. We're not getting the goals. We're not ahead on the scoreboard, but we're going to stick with our program instead of trying to, grip the stick tighter or try to do things that we're not cut out to do. We're going to stick with it and know that the results are going to take care of themselves like they did in the third period against Pittsburgh. So I'd like to see Utah play another really sound defensive game. And just because they don't have Luke Hughes in the lineup doesn't mean you don't have some really great offensive players. Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, they've been doing it a long time in the National Hockey League. Bratt's been unbelievable ever since he has gotten to New Jersey. Another one of the underrated players of the National Hockey League. But AD, we've got a fun Friday free-for-all coming up. Anything else on New Jersey in tonight's matchup with the Devils before we head over to our fun segment?
Home for 2 straight, big weekend. You want to take advantage of the home games now that you've got them, Mike. It's not going to be over 60% of the home games the rest of the way because things are going to, start to even out once you start playing these home games. So want to take advantage of it. A big home win against Seattle last Friday to go on the road with some momentum, some positive thoughts. New Jersey and Winnipeg this weekend, teams that have had some ups and downs, but teams you want to beat. You've won 3 of 4. You've won 5 of 9. Make it 6 of 10, starting with the Devils coming up on Friday. Then when you look at the standings, Mike, that last 10 doesn't look like, we're 3-6-1. Well, we've won 2 of 3. Well, you know what I'm saying? 10 game stretches is how you build it during a season.
Yeah, Mammoth in a good run right now, and I think this last run of play even goes back to some of Utah's losses, the losses against LA and Florida on the homestand. Mammoth were playing with vigor. They were there were some turnovers, there were some mistakes, but it felt like this team knew the identity it needed to get to and was on the path to get there in those games. All right, let's head over to our Friday free-for-all where we get into our Mammoth Daily Dictionary. Yeah, that's right. Bring your notebooks. That's coming up next here on Mammoth Daily.
Get ready. Your Friday free-for-all is here.
Time for your Friday free-for-all. And in this week's Friday free-for-all, that means we're getting into our Mammoth Daily Dictionary. We throw out a bunch of terms, Adrian, a bunch of phrases that to us who have worked in pro hockey for several years now, for us, it makes sense. It's just what you say. It's the lingo. Hockey's got this beautiful lingo. Mammoth Daily lingo is not as slang as hockey lingo, but there are some implied meanings behind these phrases. So what do you have for us as far as the dictionary? What terms can you lay out for us? And then how can you explain them to our listeners who are hearing these and thinking, what are these guys talking about?
You want to start? Let's start by being simple. Let's start with win a period, win a game. Mike, that's when you're tied after 40 minutes. You talk about 80% of the games being tied or within a goal in the third period. When you're tied at the second intermission, win a period, win a game. It's that simple. You get the 2 points in regulation and you're gone. Win a period, win a game. What about if you get 1, you get 2? 2-goal lead, the most dangerous lead in hockey. Mike, you get that first one, you can feel it coming. You're up 3-1, you're down 3-1. Or in the case Sunday in Pittsburgh, you're down 3-0. You get 1, you get 3. But you said it. You could feel it when you got that first one in Pittsburgh. You were back. In that case, it was a 3-goal lead. But when you get 1, you can start to feel the momentum turning. And that's why you call it the most dangerous lead in hockey. If you get 1, you get 2. And the most dangerous lead in hockey, Mike, a 2-goal lead.
Three multi-goal comebacks for the Utah Mammoth this year. This is a U creation. If you get 1, you get 2. New Jersey got 1. They didn't get 2. I think this one comes with a little bit of nuance. If you get 1, you get 2. I think you have to be building towards the first goal. Like this was the perfect example of this is the Pittsburgh game that you mentioned, where the Mammoth had dramatically outplayed the Penguins up to that point in the game. And everybody on both sides, and you heard it from both sides, everybody felt like once Utah gets one, okay, the dam is broken. Here come the floodwaters. So that was a perfect example of you get one, you get two. Doesn't always happen that way, though. Didn't happen for Detroit in Utah's last win where the Mammoth held them to just one. But yes, on Sunday against Pittsburgh, you get one, you got three that game.
First time in team history, team had erased a 3-goal deficit in almost 25 games of trying to do so. You don't like to be in that situation, Mike. You don't like to have to be in a spot where 9 of your 17 wins or comeback wins, but when you're trailing in a game, might as well start a comeback and complete it.
All right, I've got a couple more. These are ones that we've discussed already multiple times on the show, so these are going to sound familiar, but a scheduled win or a scheduled loss. Now, these are scheduling situations where when the schedule comes out in the offseason, a team circles this game and is like, this is going to be tough. We're going to go out there and do the best we can, but hopefully we'll have won our games on the road trip up to this point. Hopefully we'll be able to regroup after this, but this is probably a loss. We're probably not getting this one. We're not going 82-0. This one is difficult. I think of Utah going to Winnipeg on the second game of a back-to-back and playing Connor Hellebuck. Now, who is in the game? That's not part of a scheduled win. That's a part of another term we'll get to in a moment. But Utah going to Winnipeg on a back-to-back after playing a Minnesota team that is also one of the divisional favorites, that is a spot where it could be deemed a scheduled loss. I think even the game against Calgary, 6th game of a road trip, you're coming off a back-to-back, it's your 6th game in 9 days. That's one where you look at and you're like, our odds are not great here. Even though Calgary hasn't had a great season, the difficulties of the schedule put us at a disadvantage, and that's a scheduled win. You could also, or a scheduled loss. You could also have scheduled wins. We had one against Calgary earlier in the year where the Flames, I think, were coming off a back-to-back and had a bunch of back-to-backs already early in the season, and was talking with Derek and Megan over on the Calgary Flames radio crew, and they were saying, our schedule's been ridiculous. We're only 6 games into the schedule. We play Vegas twice in a week. We play Winnipeg twice in a week. We're playing you guys on a back-to-back. That was a scheduled loss for them and a scheduled win for Utah.
Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to my head, and the home opener as well. And same thing for the Mammoth, opening the year in Colorado at the Ball Arena. It's already going to be tough, but it was your first game of the year. It was their second game of the year. So a couple disadvantages there. So scheduled win, scheduled loss, that's something in the summer. You've got the schedule out, and you can look at that stuff. But yeah, bucking the trend in Winnipeg on October 26th, that is you're one game up there, Mike, on your scheduled wins and your scheduled losses. An implied win, an implied loss, that's something that happens during the course of a year, during the course of a week, during the course of a homestand. Utah starting a homestand 0-2 against LA and Florida. You're playing Seattle, a team that came in on Friday. That has to be an implied win, Mike, or that is trouble. We talked about Boston's first game against Quinn Hughes. They're wrapping up a trip in Minnesota, the Wild at home on a Sunday. Quinn Hughes making his debut. That's got to be an implied loss right there. So implied wins, implied losses, something that happens, that occurs during the course of things happening, not that you can look at from the overhead view 30,000 feet in the summer and say scheduled win, scheduled loss. How about Bill Armstrong, Mike? Bill has maintained playoffs. Yes. Do we have to be in a playoff spot the entire year? Probably not realistic. Bill has been tempering expectations for 3 months, Mike, including during 4, 5, 6, 7 game winning streaks. Like, hey, hold the phone. This is a tough schedule. We just want to be, exactly where Utah happens to be. Seems like some smart people involved there with with Bill. I always point to David Ludwig, the assistant general manager, who, for me, with the law background and the salary capology, that's a guy that I'm going to talk scheduled wins, scheduled losses, implied wins, implied losses, just moving the beans kind of around back and forth, tallying everything, predicting everything. As we talked about with David during our Thursday Expert in September, he's gotten years and years and years ahead of us scheduled, Mike, in terms of managing the roster and the salary cap.
Yeah, and those guys have such a good grip on just seeing into the future, and it's kind of fun talking with them. We talked to them at the start of the year, kind of had a broadcast meeting, and you got the feeling that the belief is if the Mammoth can just stay in the fight until Christmas time, then the schedule gets dramatically friendlier after the holidays, and you're playing more home games, as we've been harping on, but you also don't have as much of a crunch as well. You know, you're going pell-mell into the Olympic break, but then there's a big break, right? And then it's a 25-game sprint to the end of the year. But everybody in the organization, I think, with the guidance of Bill and David, like, they had this 37-day stretch that we're currently in. They had this schedule. They had this circled. 21 games in 37 days. Like, this is a hard stretch, and there could be some scheduled losses in here. AD, so we have scheduled loss. We have implied loss. Scheduled loss is something you can look at in the summertime. An implied win, an implied loss is something that has context behind it in the course of a season. That was a great explanation by you. How about under the hood? We'd like to pop the hood and pull into the mechanic every once in a while with our good friends over at SportLogic. We get the reports every day. Under the hood simply is another word for analytics. It's, are you creating chances to score? Not just are you scoring. Analytics are process-based. Are you passing the puck to the slot? Are you turning the puck over? Are you creating turnovers? Are you creating turnovers off the cycle? Are you creating turnovers or scoring chances off of the forecheck? What does your power play shot per 2 minutes look like? Things like that. These are all under the hood numbers, analytics that we use as tools. We use them as conversation starters, but it's not the entire picture. It's important to take them for what they are.
And you can look at it from a game standpoint as well, playing along at home. Mike, if you're watching a game and it just doesn't add up, check under the hood. If a team's being outshot 20-4 after one period and they have a 1-0 lead, probably not a very good chance that that's going to hold up. If you're playing a good 5-on-5 team and you get a power play goal or two and you don't really feel in control of the game, but the scoreboard says you got the lead, you should probably, keep your one eye open, peering around, because you might be in some trouble there in terms of the under the hood metrics of the game.
I know you got at least a couple more for us, AD. Why don't you wrap us up here on this Friday Free-for-All?
I've been on a real big nothing ever changes for us kick, Mike, here over the last week or so, with all the credit to Jay Verity, who's currently an assistant coach for Rick Taka with the Philadelphia Flyers. And when I was broadcasting my first year in Tucson, it was his first year coaching pro in the AHL, and we'd talk, and everything ended with nothing ever changes for us. Our interviews were maybe 2 minutes and 15 seconds that first year because we were going over the same stuff because nothing ever changed for us. And it means if you're playing a 7:00 game, it doesn't change how you go about and prepare for the game versus if you're playing a school day game at 10:30. If you're playing on a back-to-back, your process doesn't change. Everything you're doing for the build-up to the game, to the exact same boring, vanilla game that you want to play, it's your identity. It's who you are. It's being predictable, which is another thing, right? It's not being boring. It's being predictable of who you are for your teammates. So while me and Jay had some really vanilla interviews in that year one before we became friends, before we got to know each other, and then going into year number two, and then got him back after the bubble when he went up for a year and was an assistant coach on the Coyote staff to run the taxi squad, but came back for another year before going on to the NHL in a full-time role. But some boring interviews that first year, Mike, but then we became friends and kind of were able to sell our personalities a little more in the interviews because nothing ever changed for us. It was the same boring freaking interview every night, whether it was a 2 p.m. game. How do you adjust to a 2 p.m. game, Jay? Nothing ever changes for us. And so, it turned into more of a life skill than any kind of broadcasting demo reel that I was sending out. But I'll take it there from my buddy Jay Verity.
Got one more?
How about what I've been calling Daniil Boot lately? A 20-year-old train who doesn't use train tracks. As I'm watching the Seattle game, I'm thinking,
is this a Nick Olczykism right here? Or is this your brain creation?
It's me. Oh.
Wow.
I'm like, this guy's a train and there's no tracks nearby. He's out in the desert and he's just zooming along, chewing, and there's no tracks. He doesn't need tracks. He's a 20-year-old train who doesn't use train tracks. Finally, Mike, you want to throw one out for Nick Olczyk? Heard this one on the road trip. Oli Mata, more disruptions than a class clown.
That's good. It's good. I mean, Nick's got a book full of those. He broke out one or two the other night when we had him on the radio show in Detroit. But he's always good for a couple. I don't know if I want to include those in the dictionary like that. We got to put those in the thesaurus. Just different ways of saying the same thing.
When you get the dictionary, Mike, for an additional $2.99, we could throw in the little booklet, which is Nick's thesaurus.
All right, good stuff here on our Friday free for all. So watch out for those.
Sorry, no CODs, by the way. No CODs when you're ordering this stuff from Hartford, Connecticut. Oh, you're too young, Mike.
No idea what that is.
You're too young when we used to watch TV and they'd be selling records and CDs and book club subscriptions, and it always ended, sorry, no CODs. Send your cash to Dover, Delaware, P.O. Box 30685.
Oh, that doesn't sound suspicious at all. All right, let's get to our third period. Send everybody on their way here on our Friday free-for-all episode of Mammoth Daily. It's our local hockey roundup coming up next.
This is Mammoth Daily.
Clocking back in here on Mammoth Daily. It's time for a little local hockey roundup in our third period. AD, before you get into it, I just wanted to shout out some notes from our good friend Sam Farnsworth over with KSL TV Channel 5, because we were in Detroit and he had sent over some notes about Utah connections to Detroit, and he had brought up Chris Shelton. How about Chris Shelton out of Cottonwood High School? Played baseball at Slick and the University of Utah. In 2006 with the Detroit Tigers, Chris Shelton, 9 home runs in the first 13 games of the year. He became kind of like a cult hero with Detroit Tigers fans. 4th fastest in MLB history to hit 9 home runs. He also mentioned Jack Morris, a pitcher at a BYU, 5-time All-Star, World Series champion with the Tigers in 84. So trying to make our broadcast from Detroit a little local. I didn't get those in during the game, but I wanted to dump them in now.
You mentioned that Karl Malone foul on Isaiah Thomas and the dozens of stitches that occurred in the fall of 1991. I was in 4th grade, and let's just say the beginning and the ends of our junior jazz practices during the next couple weeks there, right after that happened, there might have been some, how did the mailman exactly do that? to Isaiah Thomas. So
40.
Influential stuff happening growing up, and certainly do remember that Karl Malone foul on Isaiah Thomas in 1991, and then going to junior jazz practice, and might have been some attempted reenactments of that. Not in any games, just with practice among teammates. But Mike, we're starting to go into Christmas here, which means college hockey kind of wrapping up for the first half of the year before New Year's. But how about some of our prospects? Caleb Denoyer, Cole Beaudoin, Tej Aginla, ready to get going for Team Canada at the World Juniors Championships. This will be our last local hockey roundup before the WJC gets going right after Christmas. But those guys are getting ready for the camps. In fact, we reached out to the Moncton Wildcats because we want to get Caleb Denoyer on the program. And he's at the camp with Cole and Tej.
Yeah, we reached out to Moncton like, can we talk to Caleb? And they're like, he's not here, actually. He's with Team Canada. So we were making calls all around the junior hockey landscape trying to get a hold of Caleb, who's had a great year since coming back from injury. So is Tej, and excited for those guys to show their stuff on the international stage, because you talk to scouts, you talk to people within NHL circles, and World Juniors is weighted extremely heavily when scouting amateur hockey players. It's best on best. You think of where guys like Connor Bedard kind of ascended to the top. I mean, they were always good prospects, right? But really breaking out onto the scene at World Juniors can do a lot for you as far as your draft stock and as far as your stock within the eyes of the program that drafted you already. So it should be a lot of fun to watch those guys, and hopefully they can represent Team Canada and Utah well.
So 3 first-rounders there for Team Canada for Utah. 9 total players, I believe, is the number representing the Mammoth in terms of drafted prospects at the World Juniors Championship. So it's a world tournament. All the countries can watch it on NHL Network, and you can check it out over Christmas time when things are a little slow. Mike, high school hockey, our game of the week. Brighton Navy varsity won their 5th in a row. They beat Park City White varsity 7-0. And I made a mistake last week. I confused Park City White varsity with Park City Red. And I said Brighton beat Park City for their only loss, which is not true. Park City Red's only loss is to East, who's another top team in the state. So Park City Red 14-1. Thanks to Quentin for setting everything straight there, as they got things a little twisted last week on the local hockey roundup. But Brighton's won 7 in a row. Skylar Velez, the 24-save shutout. Skylar Slater, 1 goal, 2 assists in that game. Jack McCarty with a pair of goals. So Brighton Navy varsity now 12-3 behind only Park City Red varsity and Skyline varsity in standings points. Mike, game of the week this week, our last one before Christmas. Herriman at 8-2 versus Copper Hills at 4-9. Herriman averaging 6.7 goals a game. The Copper Hills Grizzlies averaging 4 goals a game. That's going to take place coming up tonight at the Cottonwood Heights Rec Center. Herriman, by the way, 52% on the power play, and Copper Hills takes almost 22 penalty minutes a game. So that's our game of the week. Copper Hills and Herriman.
52%
Good luck,
on the
everybody.
power play? Holy.
52%.
What's that guy drawing up? Holy, that's unbelievable.
Hey, you like that, huh?
Get the PK ready. Get the
That's
PK
good.
ready, boys.
Stay out of the box, Copper Hills. Just a word of advice coming from your friendly Mammoth Daily experts here. Hey, Mike, on our way out, wanted to give a shout out to a clinic or 3 clinics we have going on next week in Midway. We've got youth clinics, adult clinics, skills sessions, UtahMammothYouth.com. You can check it out and get all of the information.
Can't wait. There one's up in Heber, right?
Yeah, Heber Valley, Monday, December 22nd. So if you're out of school, you're out of work next week, check that out. Go have some fun, and learn from your hometown NHL team.
Yeah, I think
Kristen Bonus, Coach Caden, Lisa, all of our friends in hockey development. They'll have fun and they'll teach you.
Well, we're recording on Thursday. I'm planning on going skating at Gallivan Center tonight. Thursday night. So if you're listening to this on Friday, and you saw a bumbling idiot out at the Gallivan Center starting scraps and dropping the gloves with the locals, and that was just your friendly Mammoth Daily co-host right here. But a great week for the Utah Mammoth, picking up 2 out of 3 on the road. They've now won 3 out of 4, and we'll see if we can start stacking them here at home tonight, Friday night, against a good New Jersey Devils team, a maligned New Jersey Devils team with injuries, but a team that's in a wild card spot, in a playoff spot nonetheless, in a competitive Eastern Conference. So it's going to be a great game tonight. So remember, always stop by top of section 6-7, and come say hi if we're around. We'll chat it up with you, get your lock of the night, get your take on the game as well. So AD, can't wait for it, man, and I'll be seeing you soon.
Can't wait, Mike. Can't wait to have you back tonight against the Devils. Have a good rest of your Friday, everybody.